What's up? Welcome back. This is episode 12 of clearbnb. In this episode, we're going to mark our reservations that were just booked using the webhook event that comes in from Stripe for checkout session completed. And we will be marking the reservations as booked so that we can keep track of when something is paid for. And then we also, if we have time, we might make it so that when you cancel a reservation, it refunds the guest. But we're going to play around and see how far we get. So, in the last episode, we talked about setting up our webhook handler. So we've got webhook handling set up. We've got requests coming in from different sources. We're creating an event object, storing that in the database, and that represents the inbound event that we're ingesting from any webhook source. And now we have this processing tool where we have a background job that is going to be performed based on that event. And then we're going to switch on the event source. So in this case, we're going to look at Stripe. And if it is a Stripe object, or if it is a Stripe event, we are going to call handle Stripe, passing that event down into handle Stripe. And inside of handle Stripe right now, we're just looking at one event type, that is checkout session completed. And what we're going to do is look up the reservation. So we're going to say something like reservation is reservation dot find by session ID, checkout session dot ID. And then if reservation.nil. Then we want to raise some exception. Then raise no reservation found with checkout session ID equal to checkout session.id. And then we need to make this a double quote because we're using string interpolation. Okay, so if the reservation is nil, meaning we didn't find it here, I'm going to raise this exception, which is going to be handled above and rescued. And we're going to update our underlying event object with that message, and it should mark the status as failed. Otherwise, if we do find a reservation, then we want to update it. So we want to say reservation.update. And we want to set the status to booked. So that's going to mark the status as booked. If we wanted to, we could also track the payment intent ID now, let's do that. So Rails G migration, add payment ID, Stripe payment intent ID to reservations. Stripe payment intent ID is a string. The payment intent ID, the payment intent is the Stripe object that actually moves money. And that's going to be the ID we want to use when we're refunding the reservation later. So we do want to store this somewhere. And in this case, we're just going to store it directly on the reservation itself. So when we receive the webhook notification telling us the checkout session is completed, the payment should be successful at that point, and the checkout session will now have an associated payment intent ID. And so we want to associate that also inside of our event job with the reservation. So here we can say Stripe payment intent ID is going to be checkout session dot something. I don't know. What is it called? So if we go over to the developers tab, go to our events, look for the checkout session completed event. And that's what this is, checkout session completed. Where in the world is the payment intent? Okay, it's at the top level and it's just called payment intent. So we should be able to say dot payment intent. Okay. And hopefully that updates the reservation as expected to be booked. Actually, this is idempotent. If we receive checkout session completed twice with the same event data, process it twice, we should end up with the same updated event, and it should be, so this should be idempotent, meaning no matter how many times we handle the same event, we're going to end up with a booked reservation, and that's fine. All right. The next step here is we want to test it out. So in the previous episode where we went through background jobs, I set up a webhook forwarder and listener so that we can wait for webhook events to come in, and we're forwarding those to our localhost 3000 webhooks / Stripe. And so any event that fires on our Stripe account will be forwarded to that URL. So what we want to do now is go back to our listings. So for the listings homepage here, let's find listing 3. Listing.find3.touch. We're touching the listing because there's an after commit hook that will go out to Stripe and create a Stripe product ID if we've never created one yet for that listing. Now we can click on reserve. And when we hit reserve, we're redirected to Stripe checkout and we can pay. And after we've paid, then we're redirected back to our Rails application, to the success URL, but we should have received some webhook events, specifically checkout session completed, and we should have processed that event here. So we've got our webhook controller is handling a create. It's enqueuing the event job to be performed later. And that event job, if everything went well, we should be able to say like reservation.last, and the status should be booked. Booked! Boom! Look at that. Status is booked. We have a Stripe payment intent ID. We've got a Stripe checkout session ID. This is really good. This is great. This is really, really great. So now we have a full reservation system where we can have a guest book property. It flows through the entire system, and we come back and we have a paid reservation. Right now, this is just like the default reservations show page. So why don't we update that just a hair? Reservation show. And text 2XL 4, or margin bottom 4, and font bold. And then we'll just say like reserve, or like so the reservation should belong to a listing and it should have a title. Okay, good. And then here, what we want to do is just print out like inside of a pre-tag, maybe we can do at reservation dot to JSON. And we need to have a show that has at reservation is current user.reservations.find params ID, so that no one can see anyone else's reservations. And here is our reservation. And I thought, how do we make it pretty? How do we make that JSON pretty? Listing show pretty generate. Okay. Okay, so now we've got the checkout session, we've got the payment intent ID, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. What's really cool is if we go back to our Stripe dashboard, we can go into home and we can see our payments, and we have these several payments for the different bookings that we've received. So this one here, $260, and that includes the $200 nightly fee and the $60 cleaning fee. Now, at this point, we are just creating reservations that don't have any concept of time. They are just like a booking. So you go to a listing, you find the listing that you want, because they don't, listing.all.each do l.touch. This is going to cause a bunch of API requests, but whatever. I'm annoyed by having to come back in and deal with it. So this is creating Stripe products for every single listing, which is like technically what we want, because inside of our product catalog, we should have every single listing should have its own product. And then every time we get a booking, we're going to create a price ad hoc for that product. And that'll allow us to like associate how many bookings are for a specific product and do some nice reporting and things like that. But it's still going, whatever. I'm guessing that this one is already done. So I'm just going to refresh, click on reserve, and we're redirected. Now we can pay $200 a night if we want to book this property. And again, we can put in the test card, Jenny Rosen, blah, 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 pay. And that is great. We're redirected to reservation. We see that it is here. And note that it's pending still, but that's because we probably haven't processed the webhook yet. If we refresh the page, it still hasn't processed yet. And it still hasn't processed yet. And did we forward it? Oh, you know what? I bet our stuff is just behind because we're like creating so many products. Like every time we hit those products, oh yeah, here we go. Checkout session completed, just fired. So this should update now. No, what's up? What? Why are you not working? Let's see. Did this get a... This should have gotten a webhook. Should have gotten hit by a webhook. Is this the webhook? Yes. Okay, so this is good because what we can do is we can find the event. Rails-C. Yeah. Event.last. Event.count. 220 events. Holy moly. Okay, so yeah, so event dot, I don't know why. Okay, let's go look at our webhooks controller. Perform later. That should have worked. Event dot, let's see. There's 220. So event dot all dot each do event job dot perform later e. That should go through and schedule all of them to be performed again. Okay, now we're booked. Not sure. Yeah, so I don't know what the delay was, but that seems to work. Okay, it might have been the Stripe CLI wasn't forwarding it or something. No, because we wouldn't have even gotten it. So I don't know what's up or why that didn't process, but it didn't. And here we are. But now it's processed and we see that it's booked and we've got this payment intent. So that's cool. Why don't we add a button? Yeah, let's add a button to this reservation show page, which allows us to cancel the reservation. So reservation show, and we will add a huge button here that's like reservations. Actually, we'll do the whole reservation path. I think we actually want to cancel. We want to have like a cancel path. Cancel reservation path for @reservation. And we'll make the button say cancel. And now we should have a route where we call this do. And this is going to be not for all reservations, but for a specific one or a member of the reservations collection. So we say member do. And this is going to be a post request to /cancel. And this will go to reservations cancel, reservations controller, def cancel. And here we want to like look up the reservation. And we want to call cancel on the reservation, which should ultimately go to Stripe and refund the payment intent related to the reservation. So I think technically like this creating the checkout session business and canceling, like sending the API call to cancel, it's mushy where it should belong. Like, should it belong in the model? Should it belong in the controller? Should it belong in some other class or some other object? Who knows? But for now, I'm just trying to keep it simple and readable and easy to follow without jumping around a ton. So I'm just going to plop it right here. And yeah, hopefully this works fine. So what we want to do is we want to say I think what we want to do is cancel. Oh, we want to make a refund on the payment, and we want to then listen for the refund being successful in the webhook and use the webhook as the notification to mark it as canceled, because we don't want a user to cancel and then it not actually refund their payment and then be sad that like it shows as canceled, but they didn't actually get their money back or whatever. So what I want to do here is like make API call to refund the payment. And so I forget how to do this. Refunds. So the refund object, we're going to create a refund and we're going to pass in not the charge, but the payment intent. So here we're going to say refund equals this, and the payment intent is going to be at reservation.payment stripe payment intent ID. And yep, that's right. Okay. That should refund the payment, and that's great. And then we'll redirect back or redirect to reservation show or reservation path for at reservation. And gosh, you know what? We could have like a lot of statuses like, oh, it's in the middle of refunding, like it's in the process of refunding. And then you can mark it as like refunded. And we probably want to store this Stripe refund ID. So let's do that. Rails G migration add Stripe refund ID to reservations. Stripe refund ID is a string because we want to be able to like look up that reservation later by the refund ID when we receive the refund notification. So back to the reservations controller. So after we make the refund through the API, we want to say at reservation.update Stripe refund ID is refund.id. Okay, so that should be fine. I do think we want to add a state here that's like refunding or like, yeah, refunding. I don't know. Or canceling. I don't know, whatever. Like yeah, that's fine. Okay, so this is going to create the refund for that payment intent, redirect back to the reservation path, which is going to show as booked still, but whatever. And then what we want to do is, no, yeah, we have to have like some sort of like pending thing, like canceling is 3, sure. Yeah, whatever, canceling. And we'll update the status to canceling. Okay, so in terms of events, we should receive a list we should receive an event for refund. What? Okay, let's just look at what happens when we actually do it. So reservation 6, Rails DB migrate. Okay, we've got a cancel button here. We're gonna click, whatever. We should make it clear, like cancel booking, and this is gonna like try to cancel your booking. Okay, so here we have the refund ID. So now if we go back over to our dashboard, and we go to the developers and we go to the logs, we should see our events. We should see refund for blah. So charge.refunded. What is the next event here? That's it? Charge.refunded? Does this have the payment intent? Oh, it does. Okay, cool. So inside of our webhook handler, our event job, here we want to add when charge.refunded, we want to look up the, does this have the refund on it? PQR refunded true. What? How does it not have the refund ID? Oh, refunds. There's like several, and it should just have one because we're doing full refunds only. We're not doing partial refunds. So, okay, so the charge is event.data.object, and the reservation should be reservation.find by Stripe payment intent ID, and this will be like charge.payment intent. And then if the reservation's nil, no reservation found with payment intent ID. This thing, charge.payment intent. Otherwise, now we're going to say reservation.update status canceled. And that's it. So I can't remember if I used two L's. Canceled is a weird spelling. Okay, so what we want to do is actually just retry this event and see if we can get it to, oh, you know what? It's already handled, right? Okay, it was already sent to us, event.last, and it was processed. So it's showing processed here. So what I can do is say event.last, e equals event.last, e.update, status is pending, I think. And then I can say event job.perform later, e. And that should reprocess the same event. And this time it should go through this flow and mark the reservation as canceled. So before we run that, if we say reservation.last, we should see that it is in the canceling state. It's not canceled. And then we want to say, yeah, event job.perform later e. Nope. Perform later. Okay. And then if we look at the reservation.last, now it says canceled. Okay, so that flow should work now. If we go through the entire process, this says canceled now. We should probably remove the canceled button and a few other things and make it like nicer, but whatever. All right, so let's come to ut acquisum qui reserve. We're redirected to Stripe checkout. We pay. Test. Okay, we click pay. We're redirected back to the reservation page. It says pending. We should be able to refresh. Okay, I think, oh, there we go. Now it's booked. And we've got a payment intent ID, so that's successful. And if we wanted to, now we should be able to say cancel. Canceling, so it's in the middle of canceling. It has a refund ID. And then if we refresh again, canceled, boom. So that is the whole flow for booking. Now we need to like attach all the other stuff to it. Like, when are they checking in? When are they checking out? Like, how many guests are coming? How many adults? How many kids? How many whatever? And we need some messaging and blah, blah, blah. But at least now payment is flowing to the platform. We could just like cut off some of the money right now and say like, okay, we're just going to take a 5% cut of every single reservation, 3%, 2%, 1%, whatever. Or, and we can do that as part of Stripe Checkout with Connect. Or separately, we can use Stripe Connect where the hosts sign up and we wait until check-in to actually pay out the host. And this is what Airbnb does, and it gives them a ton of float, where between when someone books and when they actually check in, Airbnb is able to have that money that they can invest in whatever. Instead of just paying you out as soon as a guest books, it gives them a lot of opportunity to use that capital for their own investments, which I think would be good for clearbnb as long as we're clear about it and transparent about where the money's going, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So at this point, I think we're good with the whole flow. We can make bookings, we can cancel bookings and refund them. And yeah, I guess the next part of the process will be, I don't know, but we'll get to it. We've got a plan here for Notion. I'm pretty burnt for today, but I am super excited to jump back into this and keep going with clearbnb next time. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your time and attention. If this was useful to you, would love a thumbs up, and yes, maybe subscribe. If you love this type of content, I am trying to make as much as possible just to help walk through my thought process of building out different features in Rails. We're going at it a bit of a hacky way, just kind of like plowing through and adding as much as we can, but I'm trying to do my best to like mention and call out best practices where applicable. So If you know there's better ways to do things, please in the comments let us know, and we'll try to update, and we're all here learning. So all right, see you next time.